All right, hi, and welcome to the Ultimate Starter Kit to Pattern Drafting. I'm Kendra Weitzel, and I created this freebie to help you understand exactly what visualization is and why it is so important when you are starting to draft your own pattern pieces from scratch. So let's get right into it. So I'm Kendra. I am self-taught. I've been sewing basically since I was a teenager, completely self-taught. I've basically just started picking up commercial patterns one day. My dad gave me a sewing machine, and I've just been sewing and experimenting and teaching myself how to make little tiny things, from little tiny accessories to bigger clothes, dresses, shirts, whatever I could think of, whatever I wanted to try out and experiment with, I did. And then I moved myself up to like Renaissance costumes because I love Renaissance fairs, cosplays, which takes on a whole different difficulty, in which you're really having to use commercial patterns to match what you want to make to that commercial pattern. But regardless, I was using commercial patterns for a while, and that's pretty much how I taught myself for 2 decades. So, I was using commercial patterns for about 2 decades, going through the entire process, matching what I really wanted to make, because I had my own ideas, to a specific commercial pattern, until I kind of got frustrated with that whole process, because you gotta match the commercial pattern, you gotta buy it, you gotta open it up, you have to take out all the instructions, you gotta find all the pattern pieces, cut them out, and all of that takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So, one of the main reasons that I wanted to stop using commercial patterns was the cost, the extra cost of commercial patterns, plus the extra time and energy it took to find the right one and match it. So, a few years ago, I did start looking for an automated process, and the one that I use today is the automated process that I was looking for, and it did take me a little bit of time to find the right one, practice it, experiment with it, so that I made sure that it worked for anything I wanted to try. And it is now the process that I teach anybody who also wants to pattern draft from scratch. So, to reiterate, I wanted to stop using commercial patterns because they're very expensive. They add so much extra cost to the already expensive hobby of sewing and creating your own clothes. And if you've used a commercial pattern before or not, and you're just kind of dabbling or starting to look at them, they're about $7 to $10 a pop, depending on the project. Of course, if you want to do something like very big and kind of extensive, the commercial pattern is going to add much more cost and energy and time to the entire project. And since I had my own design ideas, I already knew what I wanted to make. I wasn't necessarily looking for clothing designs on the commercial pattern. I already knew what I wanted to do. So I had to spend more time looking for commercial patterns that matched what I wanted to do, which after a while just got very tiresome. And that's another reason I just didn't think I needed them anymore. And here's the important part: if you are trying to give up commercial patterns, and you're trying to find a good automated method, you're going to keep using commercial patterns instead of actually independently looking for that method, instead of actually practicing something brand new that you don't know will work or not. So they end up being more of a crutch. If you're ready to give them up, you're going to try to find another method, but you will probably keep using them until you find that method. And the entire thing, just bridging that gap between the commercial pattern and knowing how to draft your own pattern pieces, bridging that gap can take quite a while. And that's the thing that I wanted to avoid, the extra cost of commercial patterns, in order to draft my own pattern pieces from scratch. Because over here is a lot less time consuming, a lot less money spent in order to give up that commercial pattern. So I wanted to give them up once and for all. I wanted to elevate my own pattern drafting abilities and make big things. Again, I mentioned cosplaying, like big ball gowns I wanted to do, big mascots I wanted to be able to make. So, what basic things do you need to start drafting? Sorry, what basic things do you need to start drafting your own pattern pieces? What 3 things do you need? So, you definitely need some know how and some insight. You're going to need tools. We're going to talk about the tools later on. You need pattern paper And the most important thing that you need to be able to have, the most important skill, is the ability to visualize. And we're going to talk about that in just a second. Visualization is the bread and butter of pattern drafting. This is literally how you're going to be able to draft your own pattern pieces from scratch. And here's why. So, visualization is the ability to look at a three-dimensional piece of clothing, like the shirt I'm wearing now, or say you're looking online for inspiration and you see somebody wearing a really nice dress. That's a three-dimensional finished piece of clothing. It's the ability to look at that piece of clothing and translate any of the individual pieces, parts of that dress, into flat pattern piece shapes in order to recreate it. It's also the ability to look at the entire three-dimensional garment and take it apart, pattern piece by pattern piece, and translate a three-dimensional garment into all the flat pattern pieces that are necessary to recreate it correctly so that you have a completed and functional design. So here's one example of visualization, pretty easy, like rough example here. So number one, this is the three-dimensional clothing part, just one three-dimensional clothing part that we're going to talk about. Sleeve is specifically what we're talking about. This is called a puff cuff. It's a normal basic sleeve, long sleeve for the most part. It's a little puffy at the wrist. So in order to use visualization correctly, you would start with the basic pattern piece sleeve, which is a blank pattern piece sleeve, exactly what number 2 is. And then you need to figure out how to modify the basic pattern piece shape in order to make that three-dimensional object. So you would take that pattern piece and you would lay it out flat on a table, measure out so that you have correct increments in order to get every single one of those lines correct. You would cut triangles into it, kind of separate it out so it goes from this width to this width approximately, depending on how big you want the puff cuff to be. And then you would redraft the pattern piece, just copy over what you have already done with the original pattern piece, and that becomes the pattern piece that recreates the puff cuff original design that you started with. So what 3 steps are going to help you achieve visualization? Basically the 3 that we just talked about. Number 1 is look at the very specific design or the sketch that you just made of the clothing design that you want to make, especially if it's an original. Look at that specific design or a very specific clothing part that you want to recreate. Step 2, you need to know what basic pattern piece shapes you need to recreate that design. So you're always going to start basic, and then you're going to modify the basic in order to get the pattern piece. Easy as that. Number 3 is determine how that blank pattern piece shape needs to change to become the new pattern piece you need to complete that design that you started with. That's it. So step 1, again, we're going to go through this very, very, very specifically so that you know exactly what the process is. Look at the design or the specific clothing part that you want to create. So these are just very basic examples: a blouse, a jacket, a long sleeve shirt, a dress. Or find an actual real life picture, or be able to visualize in your brain the garment that you want to make. And it does help to have an actual picture representation of what you want so that you can really narrow it down and be very specific with what you want, because as specific as you can be, that's going to help you get the pattern piece correct. Step 2, you're going to take the entire garment apart, piece by piece, which means if you're making an entire new design, you need to be able to take it apart, pattern piece by pattern piece, and decide if you need a bodice, if you need sleeves, if you need a collar, if you need a skirt because you're making a dress, etc. Whatever pattern pieces you need. You're going to start basic, but you need to have those pattern pieces in order to make your pattern. So you need the blank pattern pieces in order to make your new pattern pieces that are going to recreate the original garment. So the pattern blocks that you're going to be making in Seamstress Accelerator are for bodice, sleeve, and skirt. And the extras that we're going to talk about a little bit later and in a different course are going to be examples are pockets, cuffs, and collars. But there are a lot more things that I'm going to teach you how to do in a separate course. But the important thing to take away from here is that the basic pattern blocks that you're going to create in Seamstress Accelerator when you enroll are going to be those 3 pattern blocks, which give you pretty limitless design options. And I wanted you to have enough to go on that you could really do whatever you wanted. The extras are the embellishments, and you will learn how to draft. You will learn how to measure and draft all those for yourself for whatever design that you want to include those in, and that again will be a separate course. Step 3, you're going to determine how that basic pattern piece needs to change or be modified to match the pattern piece needed to match the clothing design you originally chose. So, step 1, let's say that we wanted to make this shirt. We're going to start with, there are 2 parts to it, if you can see. We're going to start with the bodice, which is the front and back. Bodice covers your chest, covers your trunk. And we're going to add specific drafting lines so that we get that kind of sweetheart neckline. So we're going to start with a blank pattern piece of the front bodice, and that's what we're going to modify. Step 3, we're going to modify that original shape by adding the highlighted lines. And in order to draft your pattern piece correctly for your own body shape, you'll be measuring. You're going to learn how to measure yourself in Seamstress Accelerator to get those lines exactly correct. So step 1, start with the original design. Step 2, start with the pattern piece that you know you need, and it's going to be a blank pattern piece that has no additional modification or drafting lines to it. Step 3, measure yourself for where your drafting lines are going to go, because it has to be specific to your body shape if the clothing is, of course, going to be worn by you. You need to measure yourself and make sure that you know where your lines are going to go before you draft them. So let's go over step 3 again. This time it's about the sleeve, short sleeve. So pretty easy stuff here. Step 2, get your basic pattern piece shape that has not been modified or changed in any way. Step 3, add your drafting lines only after you have measured yourself correctly and you know exactly where that line is going to be. So final product is, so once again, when you have drafted the pattern piece, you're going to lay that onto your fabric, cut out the fabric, and then you're going to assemble it in order to get that final design, which is the short sleeve. So to recap this mini course, visualization is the most important skill that you will have in your arsenal as a seamstress, and with the ability to draft your own pattern pieces from scratch accurately and confidently. So being able to deduce the correct shape of the pattern piece based on the shape of the 3-dimensional clothing part that you want to create. After you've done this for a while, I'm gonna help you start out simple, and then we're going to gradually build from simple to more advanced until you're pretty much an expert and you're very comfortable with even experimenting. You're going to be able to deduce the correct shape of the pattern piece based on that 3-dimensional clothing part that you want to recreate. And this skill is only part of the automated strategy that you will gain access to when you enroll in Seamstress Accelerator. Essentially, you're going to gain not only the ability to automate your pattern drafting skills, you're going to make it faster, and you're going to be repetitive. It's going to be essentially rinse, repeat, and it's going to be very, very easy and quick to draft any pattern piece that you need, even if you've never drafted that pattern piece before, or you have and you were not successful the last time you tried. You're going to gain the skills and confidence to draft your own pattern pieces from scratch using this method. So, Seamstress Accelerator, here is what you can expect from Seamstress Accelerator, and here's what you're going to gain. So, I'm going to give you the exact roadmap that you need to get from using commercial patterns to confidently giving them up altogether and drafting your own pattern pieces from scratch. You're going to learn how to take your own body measurements and translate them into drafting lines. So every single time you need to draft a pattern piece, you're measuring yourself every single time. And I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that using this automated pattern drafting method. You're going to gain the basic foundation blocks of pattern drafting. You're going to start with the basics in order to build on those basics and gain more advanced techniques. Advanced techniques are actually going to make a lot of sense because you already have the basics and because it already makes sense and you're ready for the advanced techniques now. You're going to learn how to adjust for fit and length of your pattern pieces so that what you wanted to create in the first place actually comes out the way that you intended. You're going to be able to know exactly what you're doing, exactly how to make those drafting lines correct for you, and exactly how to fit it to yourself before you have completed the entire garment. Before you've sewn it all together, you're going to be double checking every step of the way that what you drafted actually works for you. So there's going to be no more guesswork or overwhelm when you learn the brand new concepts that are in Seamstress Accelerator, and you will gradually build your knowledge, and everything that you get towards the end of the course will make perfect sense because I'm going to explain everything in explicit detail and make sure that you understand. I'm going to tell you everything that I know and that I learned, and believe me, I had some trouble along the way figuring it out. And I'm going to tell you every mistake that I made and how I fixed it so that you do not make those same mistakes. And you're going to come out a much better seamstress. You're going to get the results that you want from all your hard work. You're going to draft the pattern pieces that you actually meant to draft. You're going to design the clothes that you actually want to create. And you're going to be happy and actually proud to wear them. You will have the exact sequence that you need in order to get from start to finish of an entire garment without making mistakes, without the overwhelm, without the confusion that you have experienced in the past. So that is where I'm going to get you to after you enroll and complete Seamstress Accelerator. So, Seamstress Accelerator is currently open for beta testers only and at a huge discount, and spots are very limited. I am collecting feedback and testimonials, and you will receive the entire curriculum, all of it, and be ahead of anybody else. This is exactly the course that you have been waiting for. If you wanted to find a way to stop using commercial patterns and gain an entire system of creating your own clothes from start to finish without that commercial pattern, learn the basics of pattern drafting and work your way up to more advanced techniques so that you know exactly what you need to do and what you want to do, and to be completely successful and make clothes that you actually want to wear and that you're proud of, then click that enroll button right now, join the beta testers, and you will be very, very happy with the information that you learn. You're going to be very happy when you enroll because all of your questions are going to be answered. All the information that you have been looking for in order to complete your own clothing designs is going to be right there for you to gain. So click that enroll button, and I will see you inside Seamstress Accelerator.